Hey there, sports fans. It's Nathan, your host for another salty serving of youth baseball on the Salty Sports Podcast. I've got Kallem Hill here. Kallem is a dad who coached his son all growing up, and now has transitioned to a volunteer coach at a high school team with the Perryville High School. Welcome, Kallem.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Well, good. So as always, we're gonna start off with the salty quick pitch. So, who's your favorite baseball team?
Atlanta Braves.
Favorite player?
Chipper Jones.
Okay, good one.
Maybe the best third baseman to ever play.
Ooh, okay.
I know that's debatable, but I'm
Yeah,
a little biased.
we're in Arkansas. I think Brooks Robinson might have a claim to that, but
Yeah, true that.
all right. Favorite hobby outside of baseball?
Spending time with my family and then hunting.
Yeah.
Definitely hunting.
Favorite movie?
Well, it's Christmas time. You want a Christmas movie or a regular movie or both?
Oh, let's do both. Why not?
All right, let's go. It's in the essence of the season. Let's go with Elf for
Mm.
What do you think about Buddy, man? You like him?
Oh yeah, of course. Who doesn't like Buddy?
Yeah, and then I guess I'm more of an action type guy, with a decent storyline in there. So I'm gonna say recently, Beekeeper's pretty good. Uh, Beekeeper's pretty good with old Jason Statham.
Okay.
The Accountant, I guess it's a few years old now, but it's a pretty decent movie too. So a
Yeah.
little action with a little bit of a storyline in there. So
I've seen The Accountant. I haven't seen Beekeeper. Accountant was good though. What favorite TV show or series?
is Survivor. Been watching it for a long time with my wife.
Are there about 60 seasons now?
Something like that. I think they're on their like 44th season or something like that now. But yeah, it's been going on a long time. But yeah, other than that, man, I mean, I like to watch sports whenever I get a minute. So
Yeah. All right. Favorite song?
anything Matchbox 20.
Ideal vacation spot?
I would say really anywhere with a beach. I was fortunate enough to go on a cruise not very long ago, and we stopped at a little island called in the South Caribbean called Barbados. And man, if I get a chance to go back, I'm definitely going. It's
Okay.
phenomenal. I mean, anywhere you can lay on a beach and kind of be lazy and just dip in the water when you get warm, that's a nice place to be, in my opinion.
All right. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Well, I'm a farmer. My trade is a farmer, so I mean, I have to do both,
Yeah.
unfortunately, so at times. But I would rather sleep in till about 7:30 or 8 most days and work a little longer personally. So yeah.
Yeah. I tell people I'm kind of both, but I don't do afternoons very well. I kind of get groggy pretty in the afternoons, but
I can see that. You need your little energy bar.
yeah, it definitely need that. Or I need to just get better sleep, go to bed on time, get up a little later. But all right, high school baseball. Did you play?
No, I didn't. I unfortunately my family had a big sod farm operation. And man, it interfered with me working too much when I got older, and I played everything until all the way through 8th grade.
Yeah.
And after my 8th grade year, I kind of I did away with all the little extracurricular things at school, and I just started working on the farm, man. And so that was probably a bad decision on my part. I should have stuck with a couple of them. I should have stuck with baseball and football, for
Yeah.
sure football, because I've always been a big man. So,
Well, all right. Eighth grade and before. What's your favorite baseball memory? Well, I guess you do when you're kids too. So, favorite baseball memory.
you know, probably just young times playing ball at the big PYA, rec ball, nothing fancy, just playing with friends. And, that was back whenever we had several teams in our area. And, we knew when we were going to be playing each other at school. And so we'd be talking trash to each other all day
Oh
at
yeah.
school and then go play in the evenings, man. Like, you just cannot replace those memories as a kid. One year, I was on a pretty decent team, and we actually made it to state, and that was kind of a rare thing at Perryville at the time. And so we grew up with some some kids that were pretty good baseball players too, and so that made it a lot of fun. Very, very competitive for city league sports.
Well, that's cool.
So,
Yeah, rec league has good memories.
but hey, if you want to talk about Braves now, I mean, it's
You
got to
got good
be
memories.
it's got to be in the '90s whenever
Yeah.
they kind of went from not very good to all of a sudden they turned it on, and I can still remember some of their walk-off hits. Like Terry Pendleton coming in with a winning run or something, man, or
Yeah.
Sid Bream. I mean, that might be even before your time, Nate. That might be
I
even
remember
before
Sid
your
Bream
time,
against the
Nate.
Pirates.
Yeah.
90, was it 92, somewhere in
Yeah,
there?
it's like 92, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it's been a few years.
Yeah. All right. Best advice to young athletes or coaches.
Uh just keep working. I think just keep working, just keep grinding. Everybody develops at a different pace.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to learn as a coach also. You never know when it clicks for a kid. And I've seen it, click at many different times throughout a kid's life, a young man's life. So I just say keep working, keep grinding, and don't forget, we're playing baseball because it's fun. There's, you can get wrapped up into really easily, winning, which is, don't get me wrong. I mean, I hate losing more than I like winning. That's kind of my saying.
Yeah.
But let's be real. You lose. It's just part of it. You got to learn how to lose. And so we play the game because it's fun. And so I would just say keep grinding and remember at the end of the day we play because it's a fun sport to play.
Yeah. Last book you read.
Ooh, I mean, other than the Bible, I guess I don't really read a lot. I'm not a big reader. I read for information purposes.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I really like. I'm not a sit down and read a whole book type of person. But really, the last full book that I really read, cover to cover, start to finish, was by a co-friend of ours by the name of Alan Nelson the Fourth, and
Oh, yeah.
that was from Death to Life.
All right. Well, good plug for Mr. Quattro's book. At least you didn't say Twilight or something. I was going to give you heck about that, but
No. I never gotten wrapped up into, or even like Harry Potter stuff. I mean,
yeah.
so it's
Well, do you have a favorite quote?
not really,
All right.
not really.
Well, let's go to baseball. Let's stick what we know then. How about a favorite drill?
Ooh, well, I love them all. Honestly, there's so many. Anything I can get with a fungo and hammer it at a high school age kid, I'm excited for.
Mm.
We do what we call an X drill, on our ball field, on our team, and we kind of do it with a competitive spirit. We keep points for how many ever errors they get, and
Yeah.
so the least amount of points, obviously wins. We kind of play it like golf, and so we line up, half of them on the right side, half of them on the left side, third, all the positions on the infield, and
Yeah.
got a coach hitting to third and short, and got a coach hitting to second and first, and we're just kind of keeping a tally, and then we swap them and back and forth. I think that's pretty fun, man. When you can,
Yeah.
especially when you get a competitive group of boys to really smoke some ground balls at line drives, whatever. And so that one, I think also, I love outfield drills too. The over shoulder drills, things like that we're doing to try to make them make them simulate catching a ball on the move, because that's what you're doing all the time in the outfield.
Yeah.
But gosh, man, it's hard to replace just a couple of guys getting down on a couple knees and working backhand, working forehand.
Yeah.
I mean, just glove work. As you can tell, I just like them all, man, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
We do them all. We do them all. I mean, literally.
Yeah. All right. What about your favorite coaching tool or resource?
I don't, I really, honestly, I don't have I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of different facilities, be around a lot of baseball guys. And I think there's a lot of there's a lot of good stuff out there. I mean, gosh, there's a lot of just decent little instructional videos you can
Yeah.
watch. I mean, gosh, just sitting around at times talking with even people like you, over the years, talking baseball, you can learn so much from baseball guys. Just sitting around talking and figuring things out, figuring out what works for your bunch. But Tom House too, is another one of those guys that's very well known in the baseball world as far
Yeah.
as pitching instructions. I love any kind of videos like that are just super detailed instructions, on mechanics and things like that to really help kids to think about what they're doing with their bodies in
Yeah.
that whole process, to help them learn that muscle memory so that it just becomes natural when they get out on the field and they
Yeah.
can just perform.
Yeah. Something that you used to believe in, but now you think it's wrong or know that it's wrong.
Oh man, mine, especially growing up, it was always gotta get that elbow up,
Yeah.
in the back, and it's so funny because whenever I started getting into baseball coaching, and I began, my son, I noticed was, he wanted a little more out of it, and so I began to take him to a few lessons and things with some coaches and former players and whatnot, and that was one of the things they right quickly they did away with. They're like, no, these elbows need to be in a relaxed position, and after I started watching some things on that, I was like, yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say the elbow thing. When I was a kid, you gotta get that elbow up in the back. That
Yeah.
elbow.
I've heard it
I
1,000
don't know
times
if
too. Yeah.
yeah,
All
and
right.
so
Well, it's kind of the same vein, but something you believe that others think is crazy.
Uh, you know, I've got a different philosophy on bunt coverage
Okay.
on a a big field. I don't know if it's crazy or if it's just the way my brain works, but I really do not like to crash my first baseman.
Okay.
I just think that it adds too many variables that can go wrong to what's already a difficult play.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a kid in the box that has some speed. And so I like to do my best to cover bunt with third base and pitcher.
Hmm. That's
Third base
interesting.
and
Yeah.
pitcher, and my middle infielders always rotate to their right. And the reason I say that is because, one, it makes your defense know what they're doing every time so they
Yeah.
don't get caught thinking too much. And you can play that scenario with kind of no matter what. It don't
Mhm.
matter if there's runners on second base or whatever. You can still cover the whole field and do what you need to. Now, I guess there's one little uh, something that can happen to make the first baseman make a play, and that's if they kind of get a more of a push bunt,
Yeah.
and it's coming hard at them where they can get it and make a tag.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see a lot of good punters anymore, especially the rec league level. You may have one guy that does it in your whole age group, and everybody knows who he is. But you
Yeah,
typically don't have guys that that are good bunters that can push it in that position.
you're exactly right. I agree with that. And so that's why I feel like, especially at high school level, I think I'm better off to try to do my best to cover with a pitcher and a third baseman
Hmm. Yeah.
as much as I can, and preach it to my pitcher. Hey, you're a defender too. You're not just a pitcher. Field your
Yeah.
position, bounce off the mound, and be ready. Hey, who's the first person that sees a bunt? The pitcher
Yeah.
or the catcher, one of the two, right? Probably. And so, get ready to bounce off. I understand, yeah, you're following through with your pitch and all those things, but guess what? You're kind of coming forward anyway. Just get going. Go.
Yeah. Go get the
I know
bunt.
that might be, and I guess really probably the hardest one to do that with would be a lefty pitcher.
Yeah.
Just kind of because they're going to kind of be following through, kind of going to their right, maybe a little more than what a righty would be.
They got
And
to turn
so
all the
he's
way
kind of,
around to make the throw too.
That's right. And he's got to wheel around and make that throw once he changes his body again. So depending on maybe if I don't have maybe a real athletic lefty or something on the bump, I might potentially change something. But I really, really like to have a bunt coverage where, in my opinion, best case scenario, I've got second and short moving to the right, covering second and third, and I've got my third baseman coming. I got my pitcher coming, and my first baseman's kind of there ready. It's just really hard for a second baseman to get all the way over there to first base. Think about it, especially if you're in double play coverage and
Yeah,
you're kind of cheating that second
yeah,
baseman.
that's a tough one. I've been in the second base position like that. It's hard to get back. Hard to get back over there if you're cheating towards second.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's very tough. It's a tough play.
yeah,
Now, grown men, a major league baseball player, obviously they're full grown men. They're fully developed, and they're gonna be more athletic, and they can make those kind of plays a little easier than
yeah. Well, let
someone
me
who's still.
let me push back against you for a second, okay?
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Um, so if we agree that the next level they're going to be um probably doing a play with the second baseman covers, is it our responsibility to prepare them for that? Because I think it's a question that's for youth level too. Like, for instance, I know this kid may be the best catcher on my team. I know he's going into a grade with two other catchers better than him. Should I play him at other positions so he has a chance to play high school level or something similar like that? But I guess the question right now I'm asking you is, do you should you develop those things at the next level they're going to have it?
I think you can still develop it and still hinge on, hey, we're going to primarily play this coverage. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is maybe a little bit more, a little bit different than most people's philosophy. But I think you also, like for instance, I think you could, like I mean, these days in high school ball, even with the technology of Game Changer, you can scout hitters.
Yeah.
You can scout them, you can know their tendencies a little bit, and you can kind of know what their MOs are if they do potentially bunt. And so I'm not saying you couldn't still have a coverage where, hey, this guy bunts down first base 80% of the time. So
Hmm.
okay, if that's the situation, then we might do something with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you need to teach them both. I think you need to teach them both. Obviously, you're teaching them both anyway. A lot of times,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lean on. With our high school team, for instance, we have like three different bunt coverages.
Hmm.
I mean, we do, and we communicate that bunt coverage, whatever it's going to be. We got three different ones, and so,
Yeah.
and I know we're not any different. I'm sure other high schools have two or three probably bunt coverages as well. So
Yeah.
you got to learn them all. But I feel like even if you got three, I'm going to say most high school coaches probably lean towards one more than any.
Yeah. All right. That's a good long discussion there. But all right, word association. I'm gonna give you a couple words. Give me a one word response. All right. Rec baseball.
Fun,
Okay. Volunteer coaches.
necessary,
Travel ball.
overrated,
Hmm. Okay. Practices.
essential.
Old school versus new school.
Oh man, I think there's some great with both.
Okay. All right. How about technology?
Love it.
All right. Dad coaches.
Absolutely necessary.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a quick pitch. Um, so a couple things I want to go back to. I like what you said about everyone develops at a different pace, and you're in a position where the guys you coached all growing up are probably now in high school, and you're seeing them at this level, right?
Yes. I
So,
just got my last group of boys that we played tournament ball with in as freshmen this year.
all right. So let me ask you this: so, were there any guys now that are like really, really good, but on 7, 8, 9 years old, you thought, man, I don't know about this kid. You didn't think they would have made it.
For sure. Yeah,
Well,
no doubt.
yeah, I mean, I looked at the World Series. Blake Trinan, who was pitched for the Dodgers in the World Series, he threw 79 miles an hour as a junior in high school. He, as a senior, he didn't get looked at. He tried to walk on at Arkansas, and they wouldn't even give him a tryout. Went to North Dakota State and got in the weightlifting, and now he's a World Series champion. A big reason the Dodgers won the World Series too. He's really a good arm out of the bullpen. But puberty is such a game changer, and people don't realize that. I've kind of developed my whole philosophy on like before 12, it's all fun. Like 13, if you want to go, if you want to play big time ball, like it's time to get serious. But you never know till you start figuring out how big they're going to be, and that stuff
Yeah,
matters.
yes, it makes a huge difference. With depending on their, the way they grow into, young men, what I'm going to call young men,
Hmm.
especially with boys, man, they just progress at so many different rates when you're talking about maturity.
Yeah,
And there's really and truly with young men and teenage boys, you're talking about really from the age of 13 to probably 23. There's so much difference in that window for
yeah.
each and every young man.
Hmm.
I'll just for an example, I'll use my own son. How about that? He's a lefty. He's always been pretty crafty on the bump. But he just he always been a pretty decent hitter. Well, it seems like really since we got to the big bat, the BB core bat, he struggled with that bigger bat because he hasn't really quite
Yeah,
matured at the rate of some of his other kids, in his class.
yeah,
And like I can tell a difference as far as like, plate range, like what balls you can reach and actually put power on it. And like for instance, there's some kids that they grew into their bodies a little better that are his same grade. That man, that ball that's 2 inches off the plate, man, they can take it and drive it.
yeah,
Whereas my son, he just don't have the body. He didn't have the body last year, especially to kind of reach it yet.
yeah,
And he has grown quite a bit from last year to this year. Of course, from a freshman to a sophomore year, that's whenever probably freshman to seniors when you're really going to see majority of that growth happen. Like this year, he can take that ball that's 2 inches off the plate now and hit
yeah,
it out there into left center field, with power,
yeah,
instead of foul it off to the third baseman.
mhm, yeah.
And so there's just little things like that where just their body just limits some things
Mhm.
whenever they're around that age.
Yeah, and I know people that have, grew up, they were, the hot stuff, and they were good, throwing 65, 68 miles an hour at 12 years old. And you look up at 14, and they're still throwing 65, 68 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They, they didn't have that next click.
That's what I was going to get to next is there's some of those kids also that I've seen personally that they've thrown hard all their life and they've gotten to a point where, don't get me wrong, they still throw hard, if you know what I mean. Like they still throw hard, but their miles per hour gain is not growing at near the rate as the kid that was 60 miles an hour, and hung out there for a little bit. The kid that's 60 might have made a 12-mile-an-hour jump already and be in the lower 70s, whereas the kid that was 78 might only be to like 81 now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so they begin to get caught a little bit.
yeah,
And that just shows that different growth rate. And not just that, body. I mean, especially with pitching mechanics and just the way things work. Obviously, the bigger frame you got, kind of with your hips, legs, core, all those things, and
yeah,
with that whip that you can create is where you kind of get that
yeah.
that extra at.
Well, let me ask you a few more questions. Like, what does a good practice look like to you? I love what you said about having competition in drills. That's something I could definitely implement more. But what does a good practice look like to you?
In my opinion, the best practice that you can get is, hey, we're going to typically go out. We're gonna stretch really well. We're going to get warmed up really well as far as we're going to do some running, agility, stretching like that as a team. Bands, we're going to hit bands pretty hard to get our arms nice and loose. And we're generally going to start with throwing. That's kind of for a field practice. We're going to start with throwing, and we're going to, depending on the time of year, like this time of year, we're just getting back into baseball, so we're going to start minimizing. We're going to minimize that distance that we're going to throw to start out. Arm care is it's a big thing for me. Okay, and so we don't want anybody. I mean, look, you don't want a kid throwing their arm out in December when you don't play till March the 1st.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, let's take it easy. But hey, when we're in full go, we're throwing. We're going to do some long toss for a few minutes. We're going to work our way back into short, and then we're going to go into some infield drills. I'm probably going to typically divide up. We'd like to divide up, in my opinion, ones that are typically going to be in the outfield, ones that are typically going to be in the infield. Infielders are probably going to get down across from each other on their knees, and they're going to work on their glove work, where we're going to take the ones in the outfield that are going to pretty much can be outfield players, and we're going to do outfield drills, over the shoulder drills, coming in on balls, getting our feet in the right throwing motion, coming through the ball like we're fixing to make a throw, into second, or even make a throw, potentially throw somebody out at home, make sure we're doing those, our footwork, our glove work right with all those drills that we're doing in the outfield. And then we're going to transition to more of a field, where we've got kids in the infield, and we're not just maybe throwing balls to the outfielders or using a machine, but we're going to get a bat and we're going to actually hit some live balls.
Yeah.
And then let's get them all together and let's go through a full field, and let's get 21 outs.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's typical thing that we would do. And then that's kind of a fielding type deal, I think, ideally. Now, I think it's real important, especially with high school age boys, to change things up from time to time. Don't just repetitiously do the same thing every day. I think it's easy to kind of go through the motions with that. And so that's when we like to kind of implement some competition type stuff, whatever that might look like. It could be X drill, it could be outfield type drills where we're keeping score, keeping points, just to kind of keep them on their edge a little bit, keep their competitive edge.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. Well,
so and then as far as hitting, now you go in and now also, what we like to do is we also like to work bullpens in here too. So on the side we've got a couple mounds, and we'll be working a couple of pitchers, getting their bullpen reps in.
Yeah.
We like to keep a good schedule of how many days they're going to throw, take off, and then keep up with their pitch count, so that we're continuously working that pitch count up to obviously game time. So
yeah. So that's good stuff. Let me go back a second though. So for youth coaches, a couple things, like, so they don't have 5 days a week they're practicing with their teams. So let me just ask a few things. So if they're going to do a stretch routine before a game,
uh-huh.
how soon would you have your team show up before a game? Would it be an hour, and would the hour be pretty much packed in with things to do?
Depends on the age. Are we talking 7 years old? 7 years old, they're going to be there 30 minutes early.
Yeah.
But and then up to, I mean, by the time teams I've coached, were 10, 11, 12, I mean, we were there an hour before.
Yeah.
And 13, 14, hour and a half before, if we got access to a tunnel, it might be even potentially more, so it depends on how much time you've got, what age your kids are. And you just have to strategically, in my opinion, add a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit along the way. As they grow, their bodies change, and they begin to learn a little more and more about the game.
Yeah, and like about an hour and a half, 2 hours is kind of a stretch for me. But I would say, like, a lot of times, especially in the spring, your practice gets rained out. You don't have a lot of time with them. And that time before the game may be your practice for the week. You hate to say it that way, but it does give you an extra time to practice. Or let's say you have a game at 1 and at 5, you have 2 hours in between. Let them get a hamburger, hot dog, whatever, then go to a 30-minute breakdown of our bunt coverages again, or do some quick dull play turn just to kind of get a little bit of practice in between the games.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now I have a different philosophy when it gets into the season.
Yeah.
When it gets into the season now, I'm gonna limit my practices. I'm gonna start to go back a little bit more. You know what I mean? Just because it can get really, it can become more than a fun game at that point if
Yeah.
you're not careful. And so, and I don't care what level you are. I mean, I feel like you've got to give them free time. You got to give them time off. You got to let their bodies rest.
Yeah.
But two, you got to realize they got mom and dad and grandparents, and they've got a schedule too.
Yeah. Well, let
And
me go back. I think someone's hearing this thinking. 'Cause I feel like when you played, it was more like you'd play a couple games during the week and on the weekends too. And I agree. There's no time you should be practicing at that point. But most teams are doing weekends only, not playing at all during the week, and hitting back the next weekend. That may be a little too long because the kids aren't going to throw if you're not telling them to. A lot of them. Is that fair to
yes.
say? Like you
Oh
were
yeah,
playing
yeah.
league games
So
weeknights too, right?
oh yeah. So if you got a team you're coaching, and they're only playing weekends, then you've got to practice in the week. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to. You cannot trust that. You can't trust that mom and dad are going to go out there in the backyard and give
Yeah.
your number 2 or 3 pitcher his his regiment that he needs to make sure he's ready to throw the next weekend. Because I mean, look, you don't. I know when we played tournament ball, we didn't play every weekend. There were sometimes
Yeah.
we played back-to-back weekends, but man, I mean, typically when we played, we like to take a weekend off. That way you play a weekend, you take a weekend off. Every once in a while you play back-to-back, but
Yeah.
and so yeah, you've got to have practice. We had to have practices
Yeah.
at that particular point when we played like that. Now, I was fortunate where there for a few years I had my league ball team was my tournament ball team, and so between all of that, we got a lot of reps.
Yeah.
And so we didn't at that particular point. We might take a night if we were struggling with something. We might go take a night and say, hey, we kind of kicked the ball around a little bit that last game. Let's go clean a few things up. Let's go clean our gloves up. Let's go clean our footwork up. Or if we had a game where, we had a kid that was throwing at us and carved us up, and we might go say, all right, we need to go. Let's go hit. We're fixing to go set up on the on the outside corner. The guy painted it all night. We couldn't touch it. We're going to teach them how to hit that.
Yeah.
Better. So.
Thanks for listening to the first part of our interview with Kallem Hill. We'll see you next time on the Salty Sports Podcast.